Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 805 Uncensored Podcast. This is episode number 68. Joined with me is Heather Schmidt, and then we also have my friend Tammy from Florida. So thank you both for being here.
It's
Good to
great
be here.
Yeah, Tammy, do you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself for our listeners real quick?
Well, my name's Tammy Brown. I'm from Florida. Military family, in and out of different countries. Um, been in retail most of my life and do a lot of management. So you're a typical person,
Yeah.
but was definitely raised with um, some spirituality, as I guess we're going to get to today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here to talk about astral projection, dreams, and a few different things related to that. So my first question for you right off the bat is, can you just share some of your experiences in astral projection, one or two in particular that really stands out, and explain to our listeners what that concept is about?
Well, to tell them what it's about, that's going to be a hard one because my first experience, I had no idea what I was doing. I had
Wow.
no idea that that was what was happening,
Understandable.
Wow.
so it was one of those things that's, wow, what was this? What was that? And then a little bit later on in life, it started to make sense. The more I found out, the more I read, the more I researched. And so that experience was quite eye-opening. Um, in probably 1980, I want to say it was 86.
You know what, Tammy?
Cape
Sorry,
Coral.
I'm getting some background feed from your. You're
Oh,
using earbuds, right?
yeah, earbuds.
Okay.
Do I need to hold it farther away for you?
Maybe I'm hearing some background noise. Do you have like the TV on or something?
There, how's that?
Okay, yeah. Now I don't hear it. Sorry, you were saying.
No worries. I want to say it was probably 1986. I was in Cape Coral, Florida, and I in 1986 I was in a tumultuous time, teenage years. So not necessarily in the best place, but there was one night that I woke up in a dead panic. Something that I was paralyzed. I could not move anything. My arms, my legs, my body, I couldn't move anything. I was laying on my stomach with my face turned to the right, and I have a door in my room, and I seen the door open, but it opened from the opposite side. Instead of opening in, it opened from the left, and I seen a black figure come through there. With that being said, it was like a lightning bolt went through my body. I mean, so much so it bounced me clean off my bed. I mean, I ended up on the floor from the impact of me coming back. And that's all
Wow.
I can say, as far as research later on showed, that's what was happening. And as soon as I hit that floor, I was up, turned on the light, and everything was okay. And so later on down the road, I was researching that, and it was a malicious intent. So that was the first experience I had with it, and it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
So did you see like a shadow figure or?
I did.
Oh
It
my
was
god.
a very
Wow.
clear outline of a head and shoulders and solid black.
That gives me chills.
Yeah, I almost said the
It,
exact same thing.
It gives me chills.
and when
I mean,
you're
I
paralyzed,
literally have goosebumps.
on the bed and you cannot move and you see that coming towards you, that was it was just it was I can't say it anymore, terrifying. And it was, like I said, like a lightning bolt when I came back to my body. I'm sure that my body alerted me to something that was happening in my space at that time, and I came back to be able to move because I couldn't move at all. I was absolutely paralyzed. It was quite an experience.
So, how did you feel immediately when you woke up? Were you like, "Oh, that was a nightmare," or I was visited by a paranormal entity," or
Absolutely.
what? Yeah, what thoughts went through your head?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing that went through my mind was, oh, this was a dream. This was just a nightmare. It was, nothing to be afraid of because, I flipped on the light and hey, I'm fine. But later on, like I said, doing that research, it showed me a bigger event that was happening at that time.
Whoa, sounds absolutely terrifying. Okay, so what happened the second time?
Well, with the second time that I had astral projected, I was in Florida, and my family's from Missouri. So my great grandmother lives in Missouri, right? Um, I went to bed that night, and I was thinking a lot about her, and I must have, I thought I was dreaming about her. I was in her house with my back up against the ceiling. I don't know if you can envision that, but your back is up against the ceiling and you're looking down on everything. So I was in the hallway of my great grandmother's house, floating on the ceiling, looking at her, watching her do things. So she came out of her room and then she went towards the bathroom. She got some kind of ointment out of her cabinet and put her teeth in her little teeth jar. She went back to her room. She sat down on her bed, and I seen the clock clear as day on the dresser. And she was putting this ointment on her knees. And as soon as I smelled it, I panicked and I went right back to my body.
Wow.
So it was overwhelming to see her do this, thinking I'm dreaming. But then that smell of like mentholatum hits you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really here. Oh no, I gotta go. It was a panic. So just like that, I was right back to my body. It was it was crazy. And I called her the next day and said, Granny, I said, what time did you go to bed last night? She goes, oh, it was about 10 after 9. I was like, yeah, it was about 9:13 actually.
Oh,
She's like, yeah, I was there. I mean, that was the reality of it. I was there. I seen exactly what she did.
So neither time you put your mind to it and you were like, okay, I'm gonna do this. It almost like it's something that would you call it like coming over you? Like it was out of your control?
hmm.
Yes, it was not something that I controlled, wanted, asked for, or anything. I'm very intuitive and I have a little bit of psychicness there. There's a lot of that in my family, but has never been honed, ritualized, learned or anything. It's more of a natural thing, and I've noticed this in my family. So it was definitely nothing that I, said, hey, guiding spirits, I'm gonna astral plane tonight, and I would like your blessings and safety and protection and blah blah blah. No, I never did any of that. It was something that just came.
Because like on TV, like it's portrayed as something that people decide to do.
Mhm.
Like my kids watched Sabrina, and the characters were astral projecting all the time, but they made the decision to do it, and they set up all their little stuff. And so I think like a lot of people think of it as something that someone has decided to do, but what you're describing for us is you had no choice.
Right, right, exactly. No, Heather, I totally agree. Everything that I've been exposed to in terms of astral projection has always just been people have decided to do that, whether it's like portrayed in the horror movies like
Yeah.
Insidious, for example. That's that's terrifying. So
Yeah.
how did you feel about these experiences? Where like how did you come out on top of that? I'm sure you had all these questions running through your head.
Absolutely. I mean, how could I have been there? How could I have smelled that smell? How could I have really smelled it? I mean, subconsciously, I don't know if maybe subconsciously or unsubconsciously doing it without knowing it.
It's especially crazy because she was still alive.
Yeah. 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 Whenever I visited anywhere, it was always places that I had already been. It was never any place that I had never been. So that kind of told me there you had to have been there before you can go there again.
Wow.
Were you
Because
taking that as like a
it's like
past life experience?
or I've been to your house and I could astral project there.
Wow.
You know, but if you haven't been somewhere, you can't actually go there. So that's what I've experienced, and I've talked to several other people who have astral projected, and that's what they've found too. Is you have to be there or have been there physically to actually go there again in astral projection. So I don't know if it's a bond or something you leave like a marker,
Well,
that you've been there.
you're describing like you said you panicked at certain points.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if like the experience is so terrifying, because it would be for me, that it has to be a place that has some comfort or familiarity for you to even be able to do it. Do you know what I mean? I just,
Yes, but I will contradict that because I've been other places that weren't comforting.
oh, okay. Wow.
Why don't you talk more about
So,
that?
Yeah.
um, I will say it was 91. I had just moved to Wichita, Kansas, and from Florida, and there was some abrupt things going on in my life when I was a small child. So, molestation in the family. So I was getting married to a man, and all of these emotions and things are going through you. I don't know if that maybe triggered it, but of course past traumas come up. Well, I astral projected to the place, my great grandpa's house, um, and it was not now time, it was then time, and I could watch and see the things that had happened, and then again with a sensory bringing me back to my body. It was a very loud sound, and it was the screen door. And that screen door, I had imprinted in my head that sound of that screen door told me Grandpa was coming outside. So when
my
that
God.
hit, it just
Wow.
it snapped me, right back. And so I was like, wow, how in the world, could I have done that too? But as I've done research again, it comes back to you're connected to places. And
Yeah.
time and space is of one. There's inevitable times and spaces. There's inevitable outcomes and pathways. And so even with astral projection, you can go into the past. Now,
Wow.
future, I haven't been there, but I've dreamt it.
Mm.
I've predicted two of my family's deaths,
Wow.
and it was, it's hair raising. It's another one of those things that's a very natural thing that I never wanted or got into, but that's another story or another episode. But going into the past to see that trauma, I think I had to deal with that to go on and get married and have children. You know, uh, get on to that pathway. That time in my life. It was
So,
an eye opener.
in a way, do you think that it was kind of like destiny?
or my guiding angels telling me you need to be here. This is where you need to be to deal with or find an answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if I had no, I'm not ashamed of any of that.
Yeah, of
You
course
know,
not.
it never bothered at all. I knew it was something that had happened. He was mentally ill, and I can't blame him. I've actually forgiven him for everything that has been done. So why would I have to go back into that and see it?
Hmm.
You know, and it had to be in that same house. And it was my great grandmother's house. There again, you say as a comforting thing, well, it was also a
Right.
traumatic thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not necessarily, you know, a place that you're comfortable at. It's anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's anywhere you've been.
So how many times have you like experienced this? Or do you not,
At least,
is it like so many that you
well, if I don't count the times that I don't remember, um,
Wow.
it's probably at least 10. You know, that I can very
Wow.
clearly remember because those are the beginning ones that had happened that really, you know, put a mark in your mind. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
hard lesson. You know,
And
like
how
oh my
how
God,
periodic
that.
are these events? Like, how often does this happen?
Okay, so I don't astral project anymore, and if I do, I don't remember. This is something that I've made a choice of. Um, so the last time had to have been, I'd say 2015, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's still pretty recent.
Yeah.
yeah, 2015. It was only because my uncle Doug had cancer.
Mm.
Okay, and he had colon cancer, but it was in remission. And then all of a sudden, they had a bad test result. Well, I had astral projected apparently to his trailer. I've been there before, so I was able to go there, and I seen him talking with his wife, and I was overhearing all of this about him telling her about the result and saying, "Well, it's just a false positive. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm in remission, you know." And I go back to my grandma after I had come back, and I said, "Grandma, I had the strangest dream." And I said, "I was hearing Uncle Doug talk about his test results." And grandma had no idea that he had test results, period. That's his mother.
Mm-hmm.
So of course she found out the next day. And you know, that's they've always known this about me as far as being psychic or knowing things, you know, and they got used to it.
Did you have a lot of paranormal experiences in your childhood?
Yes.
That's the impression that I got as
Um
well.
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm a Scorpio. I was born on Halloween about 12:18 a.m. So actually, technically November 1st. But right on the cusp of that veil being very, very thin from our world to spiritual world. So I've always had a big connection with it, whether I've known it or not. Um, it's been one of those things, like I said, I've never had any formal training in.
Mm-hmm.
I've never taken classes. I've read books. I've watched YouTube videos. I've, you know, researched things, but I've never really gotten into it to where, you know, I'm doing tarot cards or I've got crystals everywhere or I have candles everywhere. You know, it's just been more of a natural thing. And I've noticed that even though I should have some of those protections around, I do have a few, but it comes all back to belief. And that's a big thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's another good story for you about belief. It blows my mind, and I'll tell you about it. I always tell people anytime that they're into spirituality or they're into magic or into anything like that, and I tell them, well, it's all about what you believe in. I said, take an example. I'm going to give you an example of a family that lives in Haiti. and they have a child, and this child is raised in their religion and their culture and their backgrounds. Well, there's a lot of voodoo, a lot of magic that goes on with those cultures, and that child believes it 100%. And one day when he's a man, somebody comes and tells him, well, I curse you, you're going to die in 3 days. Well, what do you think happens? He dies in 3 days. Why?
Because he
Because
believes.
he believes it. Yeah, he believes it. Absolutely. It's a very powerful thing. If you believe in something, you can manifest it. You can do it. So having that, being said, I tell him, it's up to you what you believe in. How much do you believe in it? Wholeheartedly or half-assed? If it's half-assed, then it's not going to work for you.
Have you ever
cast spells?
Have you ever read Mary Roach? She's a science writer, and she wrote this great book called Stiff. Have you read her, Jordan?
I have not.
So she wrote this great book. I mean, she's written a lot of really good books. I definitely recommend looking her up. But my favorite one is this book, Stiff, and she talks about that, and she tries to approach it from like what happens to people after they die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she tries to approach it from a very like scientific, evidence-based, and also historical viewpoint. It's a great book. It's hilarious. But she talks about that, about people's belief systems. And I mean, there are like doctors who are so religious, and they will like install stuff in their, operating rooms to try to find some sort of evidence of what, they believe in, the patients believe in. I mean, she talks about how one doctor used to install a laptop with a video going up in the ceiling because of all the patients he had that said that they would essentially astral project during surgery and go up there. And there were times that the computer would flip off, and that was all that they needed to confirm what they believed. It's a very fascinating book. And she talks about a lot of what you're talking about, but almost from a scientific perspective, which is fascinating.
And mine is purely spiritual because it's all natural.
Yeah.
So
But the two
it's
go
not
hand
a
in hand.
scientific. It does. Absolutely. I believe that.
That's fascinating.
But with astral projection, I was going to give you another, little synopsis. I do believe that there are malicious intent with astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that you should protect yourself, and you should, call upon the ones that you believe in to protect you before you do. And I just want to say that just because of the experiences that I've had. And I don't know what would have happened to me if I wouldn't have known, if I wouldn't have been strong enough to come back and not be taken by that force. And I look back on it, and I look at it as, in that time of my life, I was not in a good place, so I was attracting negative energies. You attract what you are. If you are love, happiness, and joy, you attract love, happiness, and joy. If you are negativity, ambiguity, and volatility, you attract that. So that's what I believe, that in those times I had emotional things going on, is when I did astral project. It was really tied to emotion.
Yeah, I mean, that's consistent with all the stories that I've heard from people that have had similar experiences, or even just, paranormal experiences. They experienced some form of trauma in their life. They were extremely depressed. They had a history of mental illness in their family. It's a pattern that I've seen over and over again, and it just makes sense, as you're suggesting.
Absolutely.
What do you think of the term astral projection? Like, do you like it, or do you think it kind of sounds new agey, as I've heard some other spiritual people say?
It almost sounds like it's a scientific name for it. You're leaving your body. You're going to other places. Your soul's leaving your body. I think it's a good way to say it. How do they say it otherwise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how else they would say it.
Astral projection. That's what it is.
So you mentioned the soul just now. How do you think that this relates to the human soul? And do you believe that humans have a soul?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. um, I we all have an energy that forms our soul.
Hmm.
We're all made of energy, so that energy is our soul. We do expend that energy and do astral project. That's where our energies go. Our energies can go anywhere that we've been. So I absolutely believe that, and as you were saying earlier, Heather, about after death, where does your soul go? I truly believe that it's energy, and it goes where energy goes. So if you believe it's to be reunited with the divine being of energy, then that's what you believe. You know, it's all in what you believe as where your energy will go. That's
Yeah.
how I look at it.
So that book that I was mentioning, she talks about how there was like a group that did a study where they got hospice patients to agree to use a weight on their bed. And so they tried to weigh them like at the moment of their death, right? To see if there would be a weight difference, because there's all those theories about the soul weighing, and they weren't able to really get it fine-tuned with people. But then they decided to do it with animals, and they were able to like record significant weight difference at that very moment, which is just
Absolutely.
it's just fascinating to me. What else is that? It is of course your energy,
Hmm.
um
Yeah, it has to be.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get scientific-y on you, but what is energy? Energy is mass, right?
Yeah.
It takes up mass. So why wouldn't it weigh something?
Yeah.
Even if the most minute.
Do you think that when you astral project, that the soul fully leaves the body, or do you think that the silver cord always remains intact? The silver cord meaning the
Absolutely.
attachment of the soul to the body.
Yes. I absolutely believe that. Because how can you find your way back? You know? It's a tether cord. And that's another thing that is in jeopardy when you are astral projecting, is that being severed, which leads to, and my belief, mental illness.
Mm.
Wow.
If a person astral projects and they are cut off from their body, even though they make it back to their body, it's not the same.
Yeah.
They're
Wow.
disconnected.
Yeah, they're not even really the same person because their soul is disconnected from them. Their energy is completely gone. Ooh.
It's still there, but it's disconnected from them intimately. It's not within their heart. It's not within that chakra, as we say. It's not in that energy anymore.
Hmm.
It's disconnected. It's there, but it's disconnected. It's not
Mm.
connected to it. You know? What other word is there for that? It's just not connected.
Severed.
Yeah, it's severed. It's there, but it's not integrated wholly with you. It's not
It has a loose grip
connected.
instead of a tight, constrained grip on it. Okay, so
And
what
that's
about?
why you see some people that are disconnected, that are not just all there. I mean, they are, but they're not. You can see
Mhm.
it. Kind of
Or
a blank
there
stares.
or there are people where like they all of a sudden change, and like you know them so intimately, and you know that nothing necessarily happened, but it was just like all of a sudden like totally different person, or like you said, like nothing there all of a sudden.
Yep. I'll give
Being
you
able
some
to kind of
examples. My Uncle David and my mother both have mental illness, big mental illness. Um, Schizophrenia, manic depression, bipolar, paranoid schizophrenia.
Mhm.
Um, my family was truly very spiritual, but naturally. We're natural spiritualists, natural witches, if you will, everything came naturally as long as we worked in threes. They never caught on to that until I kind of brought it to their attention. But Uncle David and my mother, I truly believe, did not know the power that they had, or how much intuition or ability to connect to that spiritual side. And I really truly believe that's what happened to him.
Wow.
Because the mental illness is so severe that they're disconnected from this reality.
Wow.
You know, and it makes sense. You know what I mean? I could put the dots together as well. If you're not connected to this earth in this reality, then yeah, I can see where you would think of it this way. You know, and that comes from the spiritual realm. Because both of them are very spiritual, and they even talk about it a lot. That's the side of it that I think that got disconnected, and they wish that they were some supernatural being, or they know that they're from a different planet.
Wow.
You know, that kind of mental illness. You know,
Wow.
so I can see where that, not our reality, our physical reality, but that mental reality that they have is in that spiritual, in that imaginary. It's not imaginary, but it's almost imaginary, because if you've never done it before, then it seems very surreal, very unreal to you. But that's the world that they're in.
Wow.
So do you think that when that happens to people, their souls are just out there floating around in the spiritual world?
No, I don't believe that they're out there floating. I believe that they are still connected to their body, but maybe a portion of it is. You know what I mean? It's not, they're not fully there. So it makes more sense to me to say yes. I'll contradict that and say yes. They're half in and half out.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they're not quite connected fully, so that portion of what they're not connected with is definitely left in the spiritual world. I don't think it's out there floating. I think it's left in that spiritual realm that they are used to, that they've gone to, that they've been to. I think that's where they dwell. I don't think it's different places, unfortunately, because it's the same stories, it's the same mannerisms, it's the same, you know, that they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they switch places or go anywhere other places.
How do you think that dreaming and reality is connected or correlated to astral projection in general?
Directly.
Mm.
Because you can absolutely confuse a dream for astral projection.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I agree. And as you mentioned with your stories, after it happens to you, it's obvious the difference between the two.
Absolutely the difference. The feelings are so intense. The panic, the terrifying, the smell, the sound, you know, it's all very emphasized. You know, it's louder, it's bellier, it's more.
Wow.
Yeah, because this might not be true, but I hear things like if you're lucid dreaming and you look at your hands, your fingers are like distorted, or there's always something off about your body. You have blurry vision, for example. But when you're astral projecting, it sounds like you're fully aware of your senses. You're fully aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I was fully aware of all of it as if I was awake. You know, that's why I panicked when I was at my great grandmother's house. I've panicked in other times too, thinking I would scare somebody because I was there. And I was like, oh God, if I make a noise, or
Yeah.
if I do
Wow.
something, you know, and then I panic and I'm like, nope, I'm going home. You know what I mean? So it's that's what I've gotten used to, is the panic sends me home. You know, the panic sends me back to my body. So I think I'm gonna scare somebody because I still don't know. Can you see an ethereal? Can you see an astral projector? Maybe that's something that people like. Oh, I got a ghost in my room. Oh, that's my ex that knows how to astral project, and he's busy.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that's really crazy to think about. That makes a lot of sense.
I don't think astral projecting is, I don't know, I haven't done a lot of research in it lately, but I don't think it's as big as all of that, you know. Um, that's why it's scarier, because the people who are astral projecting know what they're doing.
Mm.
And
So do you
or
think so you described what when it happens to you, it's like it's happening to you. Do you think there are people that intend to do it though? Like we were talking about on TV?
I think
yes,
so, yeah.
absolutely. And I'll tell you why, because I was telling you earlier that I quit astral projecting. And that's because
You made the decision.
uh-huh, and I found out how to. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on a podcast, but marijuana does not allow you to dream or astral project. True story, for me anyway. You know, it could be different for anybody else. But at nighttime, I'm pretty toasty when I go to bed, and I don't dream, I don't astral project, and if I do, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Do you think that
You
that has
know,
to do with the impact of cannabis and its ability to diminish REM sleep?
yes,
Mm.
yep. It's unfortunate. That's one of the side effects I don't like about it, because I do. I like the pain relief, and I like to be able to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, but the quality of sleep is not as good as it could be. Now, when I'm dreaming or astral projecting, it doesn't seem like I get a full night's sleep, period.
Hmm.
You know, that was one of the things that I was noticing um, in the early 90s. I was noticing my sleep was not good. And I was astral projecting often,
Wow.
um, you know, once a month, twice a month, you know, more than I would like to, because a lot of that was you know, trauma and other things that I was going through. I truly believe that the negative forces, you know, are attracted to negative energies. So if
Wow.
I was going through those negative things, I was attracting all this negativity or these negative forces. Like I seen that shadow come through at my grandma's house. I seen it, and it was real to me, and it was, you know, panicking, and it frightened me, you know. So yeah, I believe that it's necessary to protect yourself. Absolutely.
Did you did you ever feel like you were physically in danger, or that you could be separated from your soul in those astral projection experiences? Or was there ever like any doubt in your mind that you wouldn't be able to get out of that?
That first time that I astral projected, yes, that was the one who scared me.
With the shadow
Yeah.
Yes,
figure.
mhm, that was the one. And after that, I had always had crystals around me. You know, I had had a quartz crystal or an onyx or a um, um, the other black one, tourmaline or obsidian. Obsidian.
Obsidian.
Yeah.
Yes, because those are the ones who will absorb that negativity or that negative energies that are around and give you some protection. So, you know, having a necklace on or having one on my nightstand, I never had any problems after that. You know, I definitely did that research and found out that's what it was. It was a negative energy, and it was after me and my energy. You know, so I didn't want that. And and somebody also told me about it possibly being a malicious ancestor or
Mm.
spirit that, you know, from a family trauma that was ready, you know. It could have been a malicious an attempt, you know, attempt on dislocating me from my soul, you know. So I believe it happens. I believe that there's energy vampires out there too that would, you know, love to feed on that too. um but yeah, I think they could, absolutely, intentionally.
Yeah. So I guess I'm trying to figure out. You stopped astral projecting, but when you first started talking about it, you said that it was out of your control. So hypothetically speaking, if people do have the ability to control it, how do you think that it can be done safely? And can you just expand more on the risks that are involved in it?
From my own personal experience,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert or a professional or in any shape or form, but again, I'll go back to what you believe in. It's what you believe in. If you believe that obsidian's going to protect you, then it will. If you believe that that protection spell is going to protect you, it will. If you believe that those candles that you're lighting and the rituals you're doing are going to protect you, or the sigils you place on your door are going to protect you, then they will. That's the whole premise of it. So, as a natural, I think that's what I already manifest in my own mind or in my own self for those kind of protections. And that's probably why I came right back to my body, because I did have those in place, but naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So there's people out there who have to have, something tangible to believe in, something, a candle, a crystal, a sigil, but if you can get to that point to where you don't need those things, then you don't need that protection. I know that my white light is the protection. I know that what comes from my center is the protection.
Mm.
So it's hard to give advice to, the populace on how to protect themselves when it's a very personal,
It's all within yourself.
individual thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Heather, do you have any questions you want to add real quick?
No, I was one of the concluding questions I'm really interested in now is like every time that you have done this, is there something unique about each time to you? Like when you're back, like do you feel different each time or is it always the same? You described like panic bringing you back, but then do you ever feel like peace or reassurance?
Mm.
Or like when you said
Yeah.
that you visited your grandmother, was it your grandmother? And it's
Mhm.
like, and then you talked to her about, oh, what time did you go to bed and all of that. That to me feels like, okay, it's like almost like you were checking in on your grandma,
Mhm.
which I know a lot. Like if my grandparents were still alive, I would be checking in on them all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I get home, I feel like a sense of relief, you know?
Well, in all my instances, there was never a sense of peace or a sense of any of that, because more of the panic or frustration or, whatever the emotion was that brought me back, the sound, the smell, whatever that emotion was, I was still kind of engulfed in that
Right.
feeling,
Yeah.
Mhm.
so and then it's more of an analyzing, okay, what just happened? How do I make sense of this? Where was I? Was I there? Did I really do this, or did that really happen, or was that really said? You know, that all correlates right after the experience. With that engulfing in that emotion of whatever brought me back, and then all the questions that come with it.
And then and then the other thing I was thinking about is like you were talking about how like sometimes it was like something that you needed to go through. And I wonder if there are like people who view it almost like therapy. You know? When you go to therapy and it's like all that you got to like trauma dump all that stuff, right? But then when it's over, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I wonder if there are people that like that see that as like their goal, um do you feel like
Well,
you do you feel like you do you feel like even though you didn't necessarily intend it each time, did you feel like you ever went in with like a goal, like a subconscious goal?
no,
No.
no,
Wow.
I'm
Interesting.
not intentionally not aware.
Wow.
Again, subconsciously maybe.
Yeah.
But no, um,
Wow.
it was all very natural thing. Like I said, it was just something that happened, and it happens, and you wake up with that experience and those feelings, and why did I do this, or did I do this intentionally? Did I, what was the purpose of this? It's all figuring out what the purpose of it is. because I truly believe that you're going to go someplace. It's for a purpose.
But you always do it after the fact, you're saying.
Exactly. Figuring out what it was.
Yeah. If
You know?
it was me, like the first or second time, I would be like, all right, here's my list of places that I want to go. Because that's because I'm very like type A like that. I like to be very organized,
Yeah. Well, that's something that, again, if you truly believe that you can do that, I would ask your guides, your spirits, or whoever that protects you. Say, hey, I would like to go on this journey. I would like to experience this.
Yeah.
Because you're asking the energy that does it. Around you, everything that is energy. So we're asking for protection, and we want to go do this. So I think that's how people actually do intentionally astral project. Is they ask for it, they protect themselves, they intentionally, it's an intention to do it, and then they do.
Yeah.
And if they are able to analyze and look at that after the experience and say, oh yeah, that was an astral projection, or that was a dream, which a lot of it is chalked up to.
So how do you research, or how did you research afterwards? Did you
It's a good question.
in the 80s and the 90s? It's not like you could go Google. I mean, maybe in the 90s.
Well, no, there was no Google, but believe it or not, there was a shop here in Cape Coral, and it was a place I used to go. They had Reiki, and they had
Oh yeah.
lots of spiritual things going on. So I was kind of next to that genre already. So they had all the books I ever wanted. I would always go there and do research, and they had crystal shops and things like that. I would always go to those places and research, buy books and ask questions.
Yeah. Wow.
As somebody told me, if you want to go duck hunting, you got to go where the ducks go.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to find out about spirituality or those kind of things, I go where that is.
At the metaphysical shops.
Yeah. That's it.
I guess we can wrap up here unless you have any last final thoughts on astral projection or your experiences or anything else that we touched on.
I'll leave you with this one to baffle your mind. This has been weighing on me for a while. I've been trying to figure it out. With the prediction of a couple of my family's deaths, they came to me afterwards, and my great-grandmother did, and my other great-grandmother, two great-grandmas, that I predicted would pass. And it was, I'll tell you my grandmother on one. I told my grandmothers that my great-grandmother was in Missouri and we were in Florida. I came to her on the 23rd of December, and I asked her, I said, can we do Christmas on Christmas Eve? I want to open up presents, and I want to have Christmas dinner, and I want to do this. You know what I mean? Wanted to have that Christmas right then, on Christmas Eve, not Christmas Day. Did I know why? I didn't know why. I really didn't know why. So I can't say that I predicted it completely, but I didn't know why. And at 7 a.m. on Christmas morning, my grandmother got a call saying that her mother had passed.
Oh my gosh.
So here's the booger. Because that night, Christmas night, she came to me, and we were sitting in a car, and she was in the driver's seat, I was in the passenger seat. We were going through rush hour traffic in St. Louis, in tons of traffic. I mean, just, oh my God. But it was not, inside the car was not hectic like the outside was. It was very calm on the inside of that car. And I was talking to her, and she told me, she goes, I'm sorry that I didn't get to see you before I passed. So was that her coming to me, or was that my astral projection at that evening? Was how did that meet? How did I meet her in that realm, that spiritual realm? How did I meet her and her tell me these things? That was that. I'm still trying to figure that one out. And then my other great grandmother, I was there when she passed, and I seen the clock on the wall. She died in her sleep in Missouri. And the next day, my father called me, and I told him, I was like, you don't have to tell me. I can tell you what time she passed. And he was just floored. Like, how did you know that I was going to tell you the great grandma passed? I said, because I was there. I was there. And and that was another time, amongst the many that I've astral projected. But that was the hard one. That was the hard one. But it wasn't traumatic. It was peaceful. She passed in her sleep. It was 1 minute I feel her energy, and the next minute I don't.
Yeah.
Wow. It was that smooth. You know what I mean? It was that smooth. It wasn't abrupt or traumatic or anything like that. Yeah, crazy.
I don't even know what to
But
say.
yeah,
My jaw is just on the ground.
I have so many stories like that. It's hard to single out the ones, but to connect it to the matter that you have speaking anyway, for content anyway.
Oh, don't worry. We're going to bring you back on. Absolutely. Okay. So we've probably reached the end of the show now. So Heather, do you want to go ahead and just plug your social media and your blog real quick?
Yeah, just head to schmidtalks.com and you can see everything on the homepage on how to connect with me on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all of them. I'm on everything. So at least for now, as long as they all continue to be platforms. Not sure what's going to happen to Twitter any day.
Don't need any more fascist billionaires.
What Elon Musk is doing. I don't know what he's doing.
I don't know. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because a lot of my engagement came from there, but it is what it is. So, but yeah, schmidtalks.com and everything is right there on how to connect.
Perfect. And if people want to get in contact with you, Tammy, how can they reach out? And what do you have going on in your life?
Wow. Right now, just concentrating on the mundane task of managing 4 offices and staff and hiring and training and all that good stuff. So just focusing on that. We're going into tax season here soon, so it's a rush to get everybody ready for that. And next year's going to be interesting here in Florida with all the casualty losses and Hurricane Ian. Yay. But I'm at Tammy Shell at Gmail. I don't, get on social media that often. I do have a Facebook. It's Tammy Shell. And yeah, that's it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for both being here again. The 805 Uncensored is on Instagram at 805 Uncensored Pod. We're now on TikTok at 805 Uncensored Pod as well. YouTube, 805 Uncensored Podcast. If you want to ask me a question, guest idea, or episode idea, you can email me, 805uncensored@gmail.com. And we're available on all the major podcasting platforms. And that's it. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Heather.
Bye-bye.
It was great to meet you.
Bye-bye.